the emotions and the belief systems that go hand in hand with this trauma that you created for yourself unknowingly, can really cause a lot of acne issues. And so like it might sound far-fetched until you start tracing it back the way that I just did. You have this emotion, it causes this activation of this hormone, which causes a trickle-down effect of all these other issues, which then creates more acne. So if we want to get to the root cause here, right? The one that we typically don't address, which is the emotions and the thoughts and the belief systems and the trauma, we address that, and then the whole body shifts and the whole body heals, and then the acne goes away and you have beautiful skin again. I mean, it's fascinating.
Welcome to the Woman's Doctor podcast, helping empower women to embrace their body and soul's full potential. I'm your host, Dr. Trevor Cates, and after 22 years of working with patients, I found the answers to our health struggles are much deeper than most people realize. To help explore this, I'm interviewing colleagues and other wellness experts to get to the root cause so women can realize their true beauty and be informed decision makers for themselves and their loved ones. According to the National Center for PTSD, about 50% of women experience at least one trauma in their lives. But my guest on today's episode of the Woman's Doctor podcast claims that 100% of us experience trauma. The difference in these numbers relates to how we define trauma, but whether it's 50 or 100% or somewhere in between, we need effective tools to address trauma, and that's exactly what we're covering today. Dr. Elena Villanueva is an international speaker and co-author of the Longevity Code and has been featured on media like Fox News, MSN, Healthline, and many more. Dr. V teaches evidence-based approaches for finding and treating the underlying causes of chronic illness, mental health conditions, and neurodegenerative disease. Dr. V's unique approach incorporates the merging of science and spirituality and the integration of mind, body, spirit. On today's podcast, we discuss the definition of trauma and how it makes people sick. Dr. V explains how she helps people resolve their past trauma and how they can use their thoughts, words, and beliefs to actually heal themselves. She shares a powerful example of a woman who was able to turn her physical and emotional health around and finally see her true beauty. This and much more on today's episode of the Woman's Doctor podcast. Dr. V, it's so great to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
I'm so excited to be here, Dr. Cates. We've got so many exciting things to talk about today.
Yes, we do. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. And I know a lot of people think they know what trauma is, but from your perspective, what is trauma and how does it make us so sick?
It's such a great question because, over the last couple of years, we've seen topics around trauma really come to the forefront of a lot of conversations. And so, I'm very excited that you had me on today so that we could talk about this. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about what trauma is, and then we can kind of go into how it makes us sick. Understanding what trauma really is super important. And a lot of people believe that trauma is the event itself. So if you're looking at like physical trauma, for example, it could be like someone that fell off their bike, or they got hit by a car, or they were in a car accident, or got in an accident with their horse or something, and they had a like physical trauma. And then there are emotional traumas that a lot of people might think of as an assault, which could be physical and very emotional, right? Well, I mean, even a car accident can bring with it emotional trauma, or like someone who's very abusive to someone else, the receiver of that verbal abuse or that emotional abuse, right? But what trauma really is, it's not the event itself, Dr. Cates. Trauma is not the event itself. Trauma is the story that we create around the heightened emotional event. Whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, it's what we perceive, the story that we create, that then creates a cascade of emotions, new belief systems, new thoughts that change our DNA it changes our neurochemistry, it changes our biology. And there's a whole mechanism by how this happens. And so this is why, since so many people are talking about trauma, so many people have been traumatized over the last couple of years, it's really important for us to talk about what it really is and how it's so directly tied to why people have become sick, why people are not able to heal. So like when we're talking about chronic illnesses, chronic disease, mental health conditions, all these things that people have been stuck in for a long time and they can't figure out how to get better, even if they've done all the things. Maybe they've done all the detoxes, they've done all the supplements, they're doing the exercise and they're doing, all the physical things, but they've like hit a plateau, Dr. Cates, and they just can't get over that hump. Then we need to sit down and we need to look at trauma. And some people may even think, well, I don't have any trauma. I'm fine. I've had a great life. I've been very lucky. I had great parents. I never had any heightened emotional experiences, whatever. But the interesting thing, when you talk to trauma experts around the world, they are all saying the same thing. Every single person on the planet has had some level of trauma, 100% of people. And if we understand the definition, like I just mentioned it to you, then it's easy to understand how 100% of people could have it, because it's the stories that we create. It's our perception around these heightened emotional experiences. That's what ends up causing people to become sick. And in many instances, they can't get better no matter what they've tried.
Yeah, it's so important to talk about that. And I love that you're saying that it is 100% of people, because and when you talk about it in the perspective of what you're talking about is what we're holding on to, the story that we've created around it. All of us do that. We all do it, but we don't do it consciously most of the time. It's a subconscious, unconscious thing that happens, but it really does hold us back, right?
Absolutely, it does. And, not only does it hold us back in terms of really just like living our best life, right? But it can hold us back in terms of our physical health, our mental health, even with hormonal health. Women can go into early menopause or they can become infertile, not just because of the physical things, right? And so we can do all the physical things, like everything that you teach is so spot on about hormones. But the one thing that might be missing if someone's done all the things to get their hormones back on track, if it's just not working, digging in and looking for any unresolved emotions, any unresolved heightened emotional experiences, or any trauma that might be there that you oftentimes are not even aware of, but sometimes you are. You might have buried it down and you think, oh, I've already dealt with this, I'm fine. But it's imprinted inside of your body. It might have imprinted in your reproductive organs or in your systems that are responsible for making hormones. And so if you've done all the things, but you're still noticing that you just haven't been able to get to your end goal with your hormonal health, then we might want to uncover some of this stuff.
Right. And, I think it is important also that the trauma could be what some people consider insignificant or a minor trauma, whereas other traumas might be like, a full-blown car accident where somebody loses consciousness, ends up in the emergency room, and obviously anyone would call that a trauma. But there can be something that most people will be like, that's not a trauma. That wouldn't be traumatic to me, but it is for that particular person, right?
Oh, absolutely. So like a really good example could be, maybe when you were a little kid, you had another little kid that pushed you and called you fat or called you ugly or whatever, just a mean kid, right? That event, I'm going to just give you an example of how it can spiral into health problems later in your life. That event could have made you feel upset because somebody called you mean or fat or ugly or whatever, right? Made fun of you in some way, which of us haven't experienced that, especially when you get into junior high. Those are like the worst years, right? And like the kids are just so mean. So these kids say something to you. You get emotions from what you just heard, right? You get emotional, you get feelings of anger, you feel sadness, you wonder if it's true. So then you feel like uncertain. And then but from that event, you now start to become insecure of yourself. Maybe that even develops over the years into some unworthiness, lack of self-love. You look at yourself in the mirror and you start to always criticize yourself where you never did it before. Just as you know what I'm saying? Like maybe this happens in elementary school or sixth grade. By the time you get into high school, you're feeling like you just don't look so pretty. You kind of criticize yourself on the inside. Your thoughts are just not maybe as healthy as they could be. And then as you get older, you have your first boyfriend, he breaks up with you, you start going back to those thoughts thinking, oh, it's because I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm just, those are feelings of unworthiness, lack of self-love, lack of self-confidence. It starts to spiral into relationships as you get older, right? It starts to spiral into, you gain 5 pounds after, or you can't lose the weight as fast after your first baby. And now it just precipitates. These emotions keep getting worse and they keep getting worse. And that can spiral into chronic fatigue. It can spiral into hormonal imbalances, maybe even early perimenopause. It can spiral into you aging faster. It can spiral into mental health issues. And it all stemmed from something you don't even remember, maybe, right? From something that somebody said to you in sixth grade. And so this is what trauma is. And so, yes, Dr. Cates, it's so important for people to understand that trauma isn't necessarily a huge, massive event that landed you in the hospital or that, something like that, just something horrific. It doesn't have to be that. It can be something really, really small that changes your perception of how you view yourself and the world around you. It changes your bioresonance. It changes your master control system, your bioenergetic control system. It changes your frequency. And when that happens, the information gets distorted, the information that you're giving your body. And so when the information that you're giving your body gets distorted through your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, right? When all this information gets distorted, then the information to the DNA telling the DNA what to do, the information that's going into the cells to tell the cells what to do, the information going to the tissues and the organs to tell the tissues and the organs what to do, all that gets distorted based off of a change in how you see yourself and how you see the world around you that maybe happened when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that example. And, I think about PTSD and how that has gotten a lot more attention over the years. And I think it has brought people's awareness to the impact of trauma, and that PTSD treatments have become more popular. But at the same time, I feel like sometimes people use PTSD like all the time. Like I hear kids saying, oh, I have PTSD from that experience, and it was just like, it was something that was, somewhat minor. So, I mean, what do you think about the term PTSD and how it's used?
Well, in many cases, I feel like things do get overused. This is an interesting topic because it is a label that was developed by the medical industry, post-traumatic stress disorder. I believe that the majority of the planet lives with some level of that. But the real root issue of that, Dr. Cates, is that people are not taught emotional intelligence. People are not taught. We're never taught. For hundreds of years now, we have not been taught how to process our emotions. So we carry this stuff, it gets imprinted. There's so much science and evidence. I talk about this in my trauma masterclass. I show people all the science behind how this electrical impulse that is an emotion, or the emotion that causes the electrical impulse, distorts our bioenergetic field, creating changes in our neurochemistry, rewiring our neurology, which then causes these distortions or this dysfunction in our biology. And it's all because we never learned how to process an emotion. We never had enough awareness to know that what story do we want to create out of what just happened? Because the story that I choose to create is going to determine my future reality in my health, in my wealth, in my relationships, in everything. And so it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of kids, people use it all the time. Oh, I have PTSD, I have PTSD. I wonder if that's just the beginning of people becoming more aware and awakened to how their emotions can affect them. Now what we need to do, now that they're more awakened to that, now we need to go, yes, you probably do have some level of that. because you're noticing that it's affecting you. It's causing you to react. It's triggering you. So do you want to fix that? Because if you do, there's a lot of tools and modalities that can be used to fix that, so that that emotion no longer has control over your life and causes you, more suffering. So if you want to fix it, now that you're aware of it, let me know and we'll show you what you can do to actually fix it.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's talk about some of those tools. How can we address these issues?
Oh my gosh, this is the most exciting thing. So I think the first part to learning how to fix it is to really understand how it all happens. And so in my trauma masterclass that we have coming up, we talk about, I show the science, I show diagrams, how the brain and the neurological system, which our neurological system in our brain, it's the information system, it's the information highway that's sending information to our DNA, our cells, our tissues, our organs, telling them how to work, how to repair, how to optimize, all those things, right? When that information system gets distorted, that's when we start to become sick. And so first we want to understand how it happens. So our emotions, our thoughts, our language, the words we use even, they carry an energy that can be measured. It's all physics. So it carries a certain frequency. That frequency is information that is processed by our nervous system, by all the nerves in our body and our brain. Depending on that information, our nervous system, if it feels that it needs to rewire itself, it will rewire itself. It will literally rewire itself. This is what we call neuroplasticity. And, it was fascinating. When you and I went to school, we were taught that there was no change. If there was damage to the nervous system, if there was damage to the brain, it was done. Not like other organs that could heal and repair themselves. Like once the damage was done, it was done. But we know now that that's not true. The brain and all of the nerves in the entire body has this incredible ability to rewire itself as needed. And so once we understand that our thoughts, emotions, and our words, and even our beliefs can change and rewire our nervous system for the good or the bad, to either help us heal or to make us more sick, the good news here is that if we've rewired ourselves to become more sick or to not be able to heal, the good news is that once we're aware of that, then we can go, well, gosh, if I'm driving the car and I actually have control over this and I did this to myself just unknowingly, I certainly can rewire myself for healing, health, and vitality, can't I? And the answer is yes, we can. And that's when we then start going into the tools and modalities, and there are so many of them. So oh my gosh, we have resonance repatterning. It's a wonderful tool. It's a wonderful modality. That one, unless you go and really learn it on your own and do a lot of studying, what you'll do is you'll hire a resonance repatterning practitioner to work with you and help you neurologically rewire your body and to help you so that you can, like, let's say, for example, that you're struggling with this thought of, I'm overweight, like a little bit of body dysmorphia, right? Even if you're not really overweight, maybe you're 5 pounds overweight, but you see yourself 30 pounds overweight. And you look at yourself in the mirror and you've looked at yourself on the scale and you're like telling yourself in your brain, I'm not overweight, I'm fine, but you're not resonating with it. In other words, you're trying to believe it in your head. You're trying to tell yourself in your head, I'm fine. But the reality is that you don't feel fine. You still feel like you're fat, and you look at every single thing in your body that you don't like about yourself, and everything, you look at your cellulite, you look at everything and you're like, oh my God, you're not resonating with it. So a resonance repatterning therapist can help you rewire your neurology in such a way that now it's not only a thought in your head, you actually resonate with the reality that you really do look fine. You really do look fine. So now you feel it in your heart and you feel it in your mind. And that's a resonance repatterning. You can also do it through hypnotherapy. You can also do it through hypnomeditation therapy. You can also do it through quantum time technique, which is an NLP modality that you can use. So there are a lot of different tools and modalities that can be used to help people to repattern their neurology and also to be able to just fully resonate inside of every cell, tissue, and organ in their body, right? Because sometimes these thoughts or these beliefs, especially when they're attached with an emotion, like let's say the one of, I look fat, I can't seem to lose the weight, or, I have cellulite, I just don't look pretty. Okay, so when you try to change that, and you're like, well, I'm going to start telling myself I'm beautiful because I'm only 120 pounds, so I know I got to look good, I'm looking good, but you're just not feeling it. Well, probably the reason why you can't feel it, even though you keep telling yourself that, the reason probably why you're not feeling it is because at one point in your life, you attached a very strong emotion to the thought. So it was an emotion of disgust. You just didn't love yourself anymore. Like you didn't love the human body part of you, right? You're just like, oh, it's ugly. And you got these feelings of anger and disappointment and lack of self-worth and all these things and the emotion attached to the thought. As soon as that happens, it goes into your body. It imprints in your cells, tissues, and organs. And that's why it can become so hard for you to just change how you feel by trying to master your thoughts, because you can change your thought. You can try and try and try, but then you're going to be in this battle between what your body, what your cells, tissues, and organs are feeling and what your mind is feeling. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when we can change the full resonance, but using these different tools and modalities like hypnotherapy, meditation type therapy, resonance repatterning, quantum time therapy, perceptual positions, when we can start using all these different tools and modalities, that's when people see massive changes. They can actually believe it and feel it in their heart and in their mind. And that is when your physical body will actually start to heal and it'll start to change. And you'll notice all of these, beautiful things start to happen literally in every part of your reality, not just in your health.
Do you have any? That's fantastic. And I know that some people are thinking, gosh, that just sounds too easy. Like that just sounds too good to be true. Do you have any examples that you can give of someone that has done some of this work and turned things around?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So let me just think for a minute, because we actually have a lot of different stories. So we had a young woman who's still seeing us. She's seeing us more for optimization and wellness now, but she just graduated from college. And 2 years before seeing her, we saw her brother. And so we've actually worked with the entire family. Her brother had started on really strong antidepressant Prozac when he was 10 years old. And by the time that we got him when he was in college, he'd been on it for over 10 years. He had switched from Prozac to, I don't remember which one, but was taking a really, really high dose. We worked with him for a year, and some of the same stuff that we did with him, we ended up doing with his sister. So we started looking for the root causes. Let me just talk more about his sister. So when she came to us, she was having a lot of issues with her weight. She was very upset with the way that she looked. She was a perfectionist in terms, with everything, but like that was the one thing she couldn't control. So she was really, really struggling with it. And she was going to school for pre-vet, so doing her schooling, whatever she needed to get done so that she could get into vet school. And as you know, that's a hard one to get into. Vet school is super hard. And she was, like valedictorian, or she was on track for that. Her grades were just so perfect. All the things were good in her life, except how she felt about herself and how she felt that she looked, and she was overweight. So we started looking for all the root causes, and we found a lot of things that you and I look for with our clients and patients, things that we teach people, right? Like, oh my gosh, you have a lot of environmental toxins in your body, plastics and pesticides and organophosphates and all these things that are known to cause estrogen mimicking like effects. And so that's one reason why you're having a hard time losing weight, honey, because you've got these toxins in your body that are causing you to have this massive estrogen dominance. And so no matter what you do, you're not going to lose the weight. I mean, she even tried to go keto and couldn't lose the weight, which made her even more upset. So she started having more lack of self-worth, thinking she was broken. It just precipitated the problem. Then she started binge eating because she's like, screw this, it doesn't matter. I'm doing everything perfectly and I can't lose the weight. And so, but once she came to us, we told her, well, this is why the keto wasn't working. Your body was trying to protect itself. Your body, even though you're so mad at it, your body was like, I love you. I know you don't love me right now, but I love you and I'm protecting you. And we can't lose all this fat, because if we do, all these toxins are going to get released in your body and you're going to get more sick. So I'm going to just protect you, sweetheart, until you get this figured out. And so we were able to find physical root causes, physical traumas. I would consider those environmental toxins physical traumas to her body. Those were environmental toxin traumas. But then underneath all of that, she had lack of self-worth. She had really lost her self-love because she thought her body was not working for her. She thought her body was not working in her best interest. And so when all of this started happening, it started precipitating more issues for her. It just took the issues that were caused from the physical traumas, all the environmental toxins, and just started precipitating it and making it into this bigger issue. So not only did we work on helping her to eliminate all of the physical toxins causing her to have all this excessive weight gain, but we had to do some work with her to repattern her neurology, right? Because she had developed this binge eating stuff because she was so mad, thinking her body had failed her. She was so angry because she couldn't control her weight that she had developed this, like I said, lack of self-worth, lack of self-love, believing that her body was broken. And her body was listening to her, so it was making the issue worse. So we started taking her through repatterning sessions, hypnotherapy. We started doing quantum time therapy with her. We started doing all of these things and then helping her really understand how the human mind works and how the neurology rewires itself according to the information you give it, and how she unknowingly rewired her neurology to make her conditions even worse, to make her body not work. And, because if you're telling yourself, my body's broken and my body's fat, and my body doesn't work, and I hate my body and I hate the way I look, your body goes, oh, okay. So it rewires itself, and all it hears is fat, right? So it keeps gaining weight. So we took her through this whole process, and she's had massive transformation. This young woman, she's in her 20s. She just graduated. She's able to get into like genes she hadn't been able to get into since she was like, in her early days of high school. Her entire life has completely changed. And, the only thing that we did different than what like maybe some other holistic doctors would be doing is that, we didn't just address the physical things. We addressed those things that are not physical. We addressed the emotions, her belief systems. We addressed her thoughts. We addressed all of those things. And as we did, she had transformation in not only in her cells and her tissues and her organs, because she lost the weight, her skin cleared up. It's glowing now. Her hair looks good. She's happy. She's so happy and fulfilled. But, she has made a lot of change also in her mind. So she's going to have a long-term sustainable health because we addressed that and helped her to become conscious of how that was keeping her in a state of sickness. And we gave her the tools to empower her to understand how she could rewire her neurology for health and vitality.
Wow. What a great story. That's fantastic. And I am sure that a lot of people can relate with that because it's a common story, especially women. And then all of the antidepressants that people are on, and people are they're not getting the help that they need because they're just putting the Band-Aid approach on. They're suppressing the symptoms, acne, skin issues. You mentioned her skin was cleared up. I mean, a lot of skin issues come up because of trauma as well. I think of all the people that, you think of skin as our external barrier to the outside world. It's like our physical barrier. And so a lot of skin issues come up because we don't feel safe in the world because of trauma, right? We've been traumatized either emotionally or physically. And so we tell ourselves we're not safe. And so our barrier function just starts to break down, and people develop eczema and acne and a lot of chronic skin issues. And again, that's not like you're saying, there can be a lot of different layers with addressing these things, not just the emotional, but we don't want to leave that part out.
Oh, we absolutely don't. I mean, that's actually a really easy one to trace back biologically and to explain even the science behind what you just said. So the trauma that she created was really the story around her belief system in herself. She believed her body failed her. She believed that she was fat. She didn't like herself anymore. She was so disappointed because she was able to control everything else. How come I can get straight A's? How come I can get into vet school? How come I can do all this? But this is failing me. And so when you have emotions like that, it causes a lot of stress to your body. So it's activating cortisol. What is that cortisol doing? It's causing an imbalance to your blood sugar, which is further precipitating your weight issues. It's causing imbalances to your hormones. So it's further precipitating her hormone issues. It's causing dysfunction in her gut. So it's messing up all of her terrain, all the healthy bacteria in her gut. It's messing that up. As soon as that happens, you're going to start seeing acne come up on your face, not just from the cortisol, not just from the stress hormone. You'll get a zit on your face from stress hormone for sure. We all know that. But it also affects your terrain in your GI system, which then further precipitates more acne, And then it also is affecting your immune system, which is further precipitating more acne, right? Because you're stressed all the time. You're so angry at the way you look. It's changing all your hormones in your body, causing more acne. And so just like you said, like the emotions and the belief systems that go hand in hand with this trauma that you created for yourself unknowingly, can really cause a lot of acne issues. And so like it might sound far-fetched until you start tracing it back the way that I just did. You have this emotion, it causes this activation of this hormone, which causes a trickle down effect of all these other issues, which then creates more acne. So if we want to get to the root cause here, right? The one that we typically don't address, which is the emotions and the thoughts and the belief systems and the trauma, we address that, and then the whole body shifts and the whole body heals, and then the acne goes away and you have beautiful skin again. I mean, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, Dr. V, it's been very informative, and I could talk about this, just keep talking about this for a while, but I know you've got a trauma masterclass coming up, and I'm sure there are going to be people that want to know about that, as well as where can people find out more about you and working with you?
Yes, we have our trauma masterclass starts on Sunday, November 6th. It's a 5-part series, and we are going to be live every single night. I'm going to be on with my team. We're going to be live doing the masterclass in person on Zoom, and we're going to be doing some healing experiences each night as well. So as we teach a concept and we teach the science behind it, then we're going to go in and we're going to take everyone on an interactive healing journey together. It's going to be beautiful. And if you can, I believe you were going to put the link in for everybody so that, any of you watching this or listening to this, if you want to understand how your trauma, thoughts, emotions, your language, if you want to start seeing the science behind all of this, and then be a part of these interactive, beautiful healing experiences that we're going to give you, then just click on the link that Dr. Trevor Cates is going to provide for you. And I think I hit everything. Yeah, that's what we're getting ready to do. It's going to be a fascinating experience for anyone who wants to join. And if you want to know more about us, you can go to modernholistichealth.com, and you can check out our website, and you can see a little bit about what we do there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. V, for coming on and sharing your information. Everybody go check that out. And if you're watching this after the masterclass, you can still go to the website and find out what she has coming up next. Thanks, Dr. V.
Thank you so much. I look forward to doing this again with you soon.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Woman's Doctor podcast, be sure to share it with the women in your life and rate and review the show. And to learn all about balancing your hormones, join us for the Hormones, Health, and Harmony 9-part documentary series at hormoneseries.com.